Well, hey everyone, I am Brett Duncan with Devoted, and I am joined today by Lindsey Speed. Hey, Lindsey.
Hi. Good
And
to be with
Lindsey,
you.
I'm doing great. Lindsey leads the way at our cause of the month for January 22 at Traffic 911. So, Lindsey, I got all kinds of things I want to learn from you today. I can't wait to dive in.
I hope I can. I hope I can deliver.
Yeah, I have no doubts that you will. I love it when this happens, but one of the first brands that we ever started carrying was Cali and Wax Company. And that's how we learned about you guys, because Cali and Wax gives back to Traffic 911. And so I've been aware of you guys because of that, but it wasn't really until recently that I was really looking at what you guys do on your site. And I was like, wow, this is, and again, you're local, at least for me here in the Dallas area. And it just felt like something as a company, we'd love to give back to even more and support even more. So we want to learn all about what you guys are doing today.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, give us an overview of what is Traffic 911 all about? What's it do? When did it start? Give us the story.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. We are a grassroots organization. So Traffic 911, we were founded in 2009. So been around for a bit now, and really we were founded just as a grassroots kind of community organization, finding out about the issue of sex trafficking, and really specifically child sex trafficking here locally in our community. And we're just like, someone's got to do something,
Yeah.
and I think especially back then, and still sometimes this happens now, people knew about the issue globally, so they knew about maybe human trafficking as it relates to maybe countries overseas or the third world, or something like that, but not here. Not much was going on at all as it relates to the issue domestically here in the U.S. And so really over the years, we have done a lot of different things, I should say.
Yeah.
And so I like to say, our mission has never changed, but our how has evolved with the movement. Really, in the anti-trafficking movement or field, it's evolved over time. The more we know, the more we grow. And so we've evolved with that. And so in our early days, we were doing a lot of education, a lot of learning from survivors, a lot of outreach. We actually opened a safe home that we served survivors who were underage in that home on a ranch for a while, licensed by the state. Learned a lot about what do survivors really need and what do we think they need, because a lot of us, including myself, back in the day, were just well-meaning people wanting to help, but a lot of times I think our help probably harmed more than helped, and it was just a matter of walking alongside victims and learning what they really need. I think a lot of well-meaning people just say, these kids just need Jesus and a Laura Ashley bedspread, and they're going to get better, or something like that. And it just wasn't the case, And so over the years, we've done a lot that's led us to really where we are today, which is kind of finding our sweet spot in this idea of relationships. What we've learned over time is that sex trafficking is this symptom of a much deeper rooted issue of relational brokenness. When you look at whether it's a sex buyer who's purchasing sex for a victim or of a victim, and then there's this trafficker who's receiving gain off of that interaction, and then there's the victim in the middle who's being used. Each one of those roles, history and research shows, have their own relational brokenness that have led them to this point. And so we believe kind of in this big, audacious, hairy goal that if we can help strengthen communities and their relationships, then we can help in this issue. And so what that looks like very specifically for us now is we provide advocates. We provide 24/7 crisis response in partnership with law enforcement to child sex trafficking victims who are recovered here in DFW. And so we go out within 60 minutes of the call and get to respond in crisis and get to meet this young person. And then we just begin to journey with them and walk alongside them in life. That looks like case management and all these services and all this help. But it's really from this lens of relationship that I am no better than you. You are no better than me. We're going to meet together and just journey in relationship together.
Yeah. Wow. So, and add your specific story to that. So how long have you been involved from the beginning, or
almost since the beginning? So I came around kind of with some of the grassroots volunteers that began at the beginning. I was a year into it. So I came around in 2010 and I was volunteering my time, had no intention to do this for the rest of my life. Well, for a long period of time. This is my 11th or 12th year in this field and with Traffic911. So, I was working in the corporate world, just loving life, leading a small group in my spare time, serving at the church. And I had begun to learn about trafficking, but it wasn't super on my radar. I had begun to learn about it a little bit globally, like most people. Yeah. And a friend of mine just one day was like, "Hey, I think you need to meet this woman." And it was a woman who would become my mentor, who helped kind of begin Traffic911. And I remember, I still remember it was like it was yesterday. We were at a Starbucks in North Park Mall, and she sat down and kind of opened up her laptop and just started sharing with me about the issue locally and kind of what trafficking really looks like here on the ground. And just something, kind of hit me that day. And I remember going home and I called my mom and I was like, I cannot unknow what I just learned. Like I want to be like rewind. Yeah. Because it's just like this, it was just this pull of I know now. I'm very responsible because I know, you know what I mean? I need to do something with this. And so I started volunteering and I was just like, I do marketing and, kind of creative things for a living. Is there any way I can use those skills there? And so, or here. And so that sort of just that quick saying yes, really just kind of multiplied over the years of just kind of continuing to say yes to helping. And, I've sort of worn every hat in the organization, but it was really never my plan to be really even in the nonprofit space. Maybe I thought maybe I'd be like a missionary or something one day, but definitely didn't think I'd be executive director. But I think it's just been over time. I think the biggest, impact for me is that I kind of came into this thinking, I want to help those in need. And really over the course of the years, honestly, they've helped me more than I've helped them. I've grown to truly understand just human brokenness at its core that we all can relate to, and including myself. And so it's really taken me on my own healing journey as I've walked alongside others who are broken,
Yeah. Wow. Well, and you brought up, once you know it, you can't unknow it. And of course, the timeliness right now of this is it's National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, right? January, and so we want to do our part there. But I want to tell a story there because there's two things I remember when I first started hearing about trafficking, and I forget the exact year the first time, but it was probably 2009-ish, 2010-ish. And I was at it's like a social media conference or something, and someone and I can't remember why, but they were talking about, and I want to say you'll probably know this, but maybe an organization called, is it Love 146 or Love? Was it? Okay. So that's the first time I remember watching a video and hearing this story. And I'd never heard any of that ever. And I'm like, this cannot happen. This cannot be. And then fast forward a year or so, and it's when the Super Bowl was here in Dallas. And I remember at our church, I was going at Irving Bible Church at the time. We lived in Valley Ranch, and I mean, the gimmicky things that you do, I guess, but we were doing a walk a mile in her shoes. And so you had these men in high heels walking down MacArthur Boulevard to build awareness. But if I'm being honest, I didn't really know what I was building awareness for, because I've never, at least knowingly, seen it here in the Dallas area. So, and I bet I'm not alone. I bet wherever people are listening right now, whatever area it is, they're like, okay, that's something that happens in Asia or wherever. So how is that happening here? What does it look like? Really, when you get involved, what's happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, at the core of the issue, at its core, it's a supply and demand issue like anything else. And so with sex trafficking, because we have a pretty high demand, unfortunately, for sex for pay, sex with kids, sex with teen girls, predominantly a lot of times, then we have an issue here, because wherever there's going to be this demand, there's going to be someone wanting to pounce on
the opportunity,
taking advantage of the supply. The opportunity. And so what we have is a high demand for predominantly men who believe it's okay to purchase sex. And we have a lot of young, vulnerable kiddos, youth, let's say ages 12 to 16 on average, first getting into this kind of life, or getting lured into this life. And so that's a vulnerable age group that a pimp or a trafficker is going to take advantage of for their profit. And so, what we see is a lot of hotels. I'll drive down, certain areas and I know, oh, it's happening in that hotel. It's happening in that hotel. And it's happening all across the Metroplex, all across communities. It really, trafficking doesn't know a social spectrum. It's all across the spectrum. And what we see is broken individuals. Most of the youth we respond to in crisis, a lot of them come from broken homes. Not all of them, and I want to make sure we're clear on that. But a lot of them do come from broken homes, come from poverty. They're youth of color. They may have just experienced a tough life. Poverty is a big one that maybe has led them to become more vulnerable. Maybe a one-parent household, maybe involvement in the child justice system. So things like this just make a youth more vulnerable. And so then when there's such a high demand, these traffickers are coming in saying, hey, do you want to make some money with me? And do the girls get to keep it normally? No, but they're, pulled away and romanced and groomed into a life that I guarantee you none of them really would have chosen. And this element of choice is really, it's a hard topic because people, what you think you might see, let's say like there are still kind of a few tracks, as you will, here in DFW, where some of the girls will walk the track or walk the street. But so what an outsider may see is someone who they think is choosing that life. And the reality is it's just not the case. And it's not that simple. There's a lot of psychological manipulation going on. And so it takes years of sort of, trying to unwrap that. Right. And so we come on the scene and, a lot of times they've been hurt by systems or well-meaning people who try to help, or even some of the sex buyers who purchased them for sex should have been people that they trusted, right, in society. And so we're coming up against a lot of, obstacles to say, hey, you can trust me. I'm here for you. Like, I'm going to be here for you. And if they get lured back, like we're there for them, and so that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah. So take that even further. So how do you find them? What happens when you do find them? Help me understand. Help me kind of visualize what's going on there.
Yeah. So here, really in Texas, especially, we use the word recovery instead of rescue because we ain't rescuing anyone. No one's rescuing anyone. When a youth is recovered from a situation, it's usually done by law enforcement.
Okay.
9 times out of 10, 9.8 times out of 10,
Got
as
it.
it should be. Law enforcement, especially here in this area, are very well informed and well educated for the most part. And so we come in, let's say, gosh, it can happen a number of different ways, but I'll just give you an example. Sometimes it can happen proactively where like we're partnered with federal law enforcement and they decide they're going to set up an operation at a hotel to hopefully begin to have some encounters with some girls or boys who are being prostituted. And so what that may look like is the operation is set up at the hotel. Let's just say a girl answers or comes to the hotel room expecting to meet a John to exchange sex for money usually, but instead law enforcement's there and we're in the next room and they'll bring them over to us and we get to communicate with them. So that's one way it happens. Another way might be if a girl is on the street or something and she gets picked up by maybe law enforcement who can see like something's not right here. They get taken up to maybe the police headquarters and we get called. And so one of our advocates goes out and meets them there with a backpack. We bring a backpack of full of goodies and just kind of really start to get to know them and really start to advocate for them. A lot kind of goes on. Medical goes on next. And so we usually take them to the hospital to get checked out and then helping them find the most safe place for them to stay, which can be really challenging if home is not ideal. And so every one of those scenarios kind of looks different, kind of where they end up landing and things like that. Maybe they need to go to a mental health hospital for a while. It just kind of depends, but that's kind of how usually we end up there because law enforcement has identified them and we get called.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, again, I'm just trying to picture that. Now, could these be, let's say it's a 14-year-old girl. I mean, could it easily be, yes, this is someone who's at school every day and going through classes or whatever, and you just don't know, or have they removed themselves from that part of society? How does it work?
Yeah, it can be. It can be. We've had a handful of cases where, the youth was in school. More often than not, it's going to be that they're kind of transient, maybe in and out of school, or they don't have a lot of consistency, or maybe they were there for a while and then all of a sudden, school can't make contact with the family or the kid, that kind of thing. But a lot of times, a lot of the youth we work with, they're behind in school, and they're either kind of considered these runaways that are sort of on off the street, or they're just kind of living a different life, maybe with a friend in another apartment away from their family. So yeah, I mean, some of them have stayed in school and just kind of were sort of forced to do some of this stuff at night and on the weekends. Wow.
And your advocates. So is this a full-time job for them? Are they volunteers? Okay. So got it.
Yeah. Our advocates are full-time employees. I call them local missionaries. They're just, they have huge hearts, and they are all really professionally trained, either backgrounds in counseling, mental health, social work, criminal justice. And they're just unicorns. They are fighting so hard. We were on a staff meeting this morning, and we always have kind of story time and stories from the field. And one of our advocates was she had us all in tears because a girl that we've all been praying would get recovered. They've been looking for quite a while. She's been gone, and she got recovered over the weekend. And so we got to be there. And Rihanna, the advocate, was just like, pray she doesn't run, because we were able to get this treatment center to accept her today, like Monday morning at 9:30, but she needed to stay put, for a couple of days until we got her. And so we were just praying all weekend. But unfortunately she wasn't ready. And so she took off, and we were just all in tears because Rihanna was fighting so hard for her this weekend. And so, yeah, our team is they fight really hard for these kiddos because there's a
Yeah,
lot of systems and players involved when it comes to kids, and so it can get a
sure.
little complex.
Speaking of stories, I mean, what are some others over the years that kind of come across your mind that just have blown you away?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think it's the resiliency some people will say like, man, how do you do this? It's so dark. It's
Yeah.
so depressing.
Well,
And
I'm find myself here. You're so happy and bubbly and and which is great. It's awesome. I'm glad, but I'm like,
but
how do you
yeah,
stay that way?
it's dark. It's dark.
Yeah.
It's heavy for sure. It's not for everyone, but I think that I always say, we get a front row seat to witness human resiliency at its finest. I mean,
Mm,
when you have the honor of hearing the stories that we hear and witnessing, just these girls who will tell me why they still have faith and hope. And
uh,
sometimes I'm just like, if you if you can believe there's God, then surely I can,
yeah.
because it's really amazing to see them progress. I'm just thinking about some girls I've known for a long time, and one of the girls I'm thinking of that comes to mind. I mean, it took her several years to kind of feel like she had the confidence in herself to do something different. Not that she really had a choice, but um, I had been just really, there for her after all these years. And this last year or so, she took a turn, and she was willing to go to a treatment kind of program, a safe home program in another state, and just kind of drop everything and go. She's like, I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
Mhm.
And she's been doing so good. She's like gotten her GED, she's graduated, and I got a picture sent to me the other day, and she looks like a totally different girl. But it's on their timeline. It's not on ours.
Yeah.
I think that's what's hard about, I would say, where we're called in this long journey is
Yeah.
sort of at the beginning. We're called to the younger girls. We're called to the ones who this may be a little bit more of a honeymoon phase, versus like maybe if we're called to the 30 or where they're like, I'm done, I'm spent. We're at a unique place that I feel like God's called us to, where we really don't get to always see the fruit that
Yeah.
we would hope we would see on this side of the place in our lives. And so the stories are, we have to celebrate the small wins every
Yeah.
step of the way.
Well, and I mean, just based off kind of what you're saying, you know, the I'm assuming the first time someone's recovered, there's oftentimes repeat recovery, right? That's kind of, is that more the norm?
Yeah.
Okay. So help those of us who are ignorant, who would maybe just assume, oh, they're just waiting for a way out, or whatever. So
Yeah.
what continues to draw them back into that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think perceived freedom.
Yeah.
A pimp will really tell them a story about how, look, your life was no better at home. They could have been being abused at home,
Yeah.
just had a really hard life. And so this perceived element of I'm doing what I want, or I have someone who loves me, or even like kind of promises, these false promises of, well,
Yeah.
I've heard so many girls say like, well, once we make $10,000, he told me he's taking me to Vegas, and like they don't know any better, and
Yeah.
they haven't experienced any better. And so when you come from stories of brokenness, everything, the grass may seem greener because someone's telling you it is. and
Yeah.
and I mean, like, traffickers are really good at building them up and saying like, good job, baby girl, you brought in that $500 today, this was all you. Now they're putting it in their pocket, but they're going
Right.
to praise her, and they're going to go buy her a new pair of shoes. And for a kid who hasn't ever had any of that, it can seem
Yeah.
exciting and exhilarating. And even there's like bonds and kind of friendship bonds that develop when they're in that life. And,
course.
that's why we have to sort of build that. And it takes a while, for us showing back up, our team being there for them to say like, no, there are healthy people who you can trust too, on the outside.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of, we call it re-recoveries. If you follow us on social media ever, you may see us because we try to sort of help educate the public about how, there's a recovery, then there might be a re-recovery and a re-recovery where just like this weekend, the girl that was recovered has been recovered multiple times. And so we have to kind of, I don't want to say expect it in a way that we don't believe for more, but we have to be realistic about, our expectations to know that us pushing our version of success on them is not going to move the needle. We've got to meet them where they are and understand that it's going to take a little while, depending on how kind of deep they were in that kind of life.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of what you guys post and all your resources and information, it really is, you stand out there. We're reposting a lot of your stuff right now, and we'll continue to do that. What is, you have on your site some myths, and you also bring up, that misinformation really can do more harm, than good. So, I mean, what is a myth or two that you're like, we've really got to stop this thinking about trafficking?
Yeah, I think it's probably the sort of taken abduction type of mentality that like, oh, I can't, my kid's got to walk close to me with me at the store because someone's going to snatch them up. Like, if that happens, that's a thing. It's not trafficking, I'm talking like 0.001% of the time. It might be, but the vast majority of what we see is this slow sort of, grooming type of thing that doesn't happen in an instant. And so I think that that's important. It's also important for people to know that, because if we're looking, like, we can't find victims if that's what we're looking for, because they're never going to present like that, and they won't ever have those stories. And so it really does kind of make the youth we serve even more invisible, because even like these human trafficking awareness campaigns, if they're showing these images of, a girl with something around her mouth or like chains, no victim is going to see that and ever think they're a victim, because that's not what it looks like, and so the chains are invisible. The chains are psychological. And so I think we have a long way to go still in, I think the movement's doing a good job, the anti-trafficking movement, but there's a lot of sort of outlying maybe organizations or just groups who don't fully understand the issue, but just, it is kind of a fad issue right now. It's really sexy to support human trafficking. And so people will share and kind of circulate information that really does do more harm than good. And then it really hurts us as an organization, because donors, I mean, gosh, we have to really educate donors on what they are funding, because the story of some of the victims I tell them doesn't really connect with maybe some misinformation that they've read about trafficking. Yeah.
Talk about that too, because I certainly want to, encourage people to get, if they feel compelled and convicted, to get more involved with you guys. Certainly want them to do that. Obviously, you can shop with Devoted, and that will do something. But I always like to encourage people to, if they feel led, do more and work directly with you guys. So, one, what's the best way for just anyone to be involved? And then two, when someone does give, where's the vast majority of those funds? What's it going to?
So what the funds are going towards is ensuring every child sex trafficking victim who gets identified here in DFW gets a person. That person gets to show up, and our donors make sure that happens, because they ensure that our advocates get to respond and get to be employed to do so. And they stay on 24/7 crisis response because of, people who support us. And so, that first and foremost, staying involved, gosh, I'd say definitely follow us on social, just because that's kind of where you can sort of be grafted into sort of our everyday stories and what's going on. Sign up to get our emails. And we have, if you're local to the DFW area, we have sort of informationals that we have, sort of Trafficking 101 orientations at our, usually near our headquarters in Addison, where it's sort of a 2-hour sit down training and informational to understand about the issue, but then also how else they can get involved, because we're just one of many fighter organizations in this area, and we all are just like a family. We all support each other, and so we never are like, hey, you can get involved with us. I can tell you, like, this is who all is here, and we want you to get involved in the movement, however it looks for you. And so, check us out on the website, sign up for our email. But I would say, honestly, the biggest thing is just to learn. Devote yourself to learning and not just getting involved because it's cool or you want to help. I mean, that was me. I want to help, but I would say I think I needed to learn a lot more earlier that I wish I would have done before I was just like, let me get to work. And so I think it's just like any big societal issue. We're responsible for really understanding the core issue before we go and try to, take it into our own hands. And so I think it's the same way.
Wait, you mean we're not supposed to just go out there and just blast it like we know everything, thinking that's any help is good help?
That's a word, man.
Yeah, well, no, that is good. My curiosity is getting the best of me here. So I'm just, again, visualizing what you guys do. Do you ever run into like, a pimp that like recognizes y'all, like that is like, oh gosh, are you ever around them? But it's like, oh gosh, here they come. Like they would have to see you guys as a major threat, right, to their business. And I'm just wondering if that ever comes up, how that would look.
Not much. We've had a few scares over the years. Back in our early days, we did a lot more, I would say, kind of dangerous stuff where, we were really making sure these guys got behind bars. Now, I really feel like there might be some pimps out there who know who we are, but like a lot of them probably think we're this girl's caseworker, we're not trying to take her out. Like we have several girls who are in the life and like, they may still text their advocate because we're like, look, it's you get to choose to communicate with us. You get to choose, we're not forcing anything on these youth. And so we try to go about it in a way that's really relational. And I mean, have I met a few pimps in my day? Yes. But, so far the Lord has kept us safe. We know that what we do, there's an element of danger that you can't eliminate. And so people who we bring on, it's just like, hey, there's all these things that we're doing to keep ourselves safe, but at its very core, there's some danger in what we do. And so, but we choose to not live in fear, and we believe that our team matters and we want people to know who they are. And there's a lot of agencies who just like, there's no face, there's no, and that's not what we feel called to do. We feel called to not live in fear and have our faces out there and say, this is who's doing this work, Yeah,
that's awesome. Thinking ahead, a year, 2 years, 5 years, hopes and dreams for Traffick911. What do you see happening?
Yeah, ultimately, we want to impact the highest number of lives with the highest level of service. And so as we grow, it is about numbers because every number has a story and every number has a name. However, we want to go deep. And over the years, we've tried to go wide. And I think especially the last probably 3 or 4 years, we've said we want to go deep in our community. We want to go deep not only with the youth and their own set of brokenness, but with the family that surrounds them and strengthening families. We have a few new people on our team who are going to be committed to walking alongside the families and some of these mothers. So we see definitely going deeper with the families and the youth that we serve, but also really having a wider impact just on the movement as a whole. And really my heart is, how do you stay healthy in this work? How do you work on your own self as you walk alongside others and encouraging them to work on their self? And so we have a heart for coming alongside the movement and really keeping ourselves free and healthy as we do the work of freedom. So,
Yeah. Wow. Well, this has been awesome. And I appreciate, I've learned a lot, and more than anything, I hope people feel they've learned something, but they also feel like, here's a very practical way that I can help with this. Because, thinking about your advocates, it's like, there's a lot of people who probably would love to do something, but there's a lot of education and qualification that needs to go into that, right? Because again,
yes,
the motive might be right, but if I come in there guns blazing on, let's get you out of there today, to your point, it's like you are completely ignoring all kinds of psychological things here and sociological things here. That you need to be aware of. So for people to be able to tap into that, hang with me, Lindsey, the quick little infomercial component of this. But if this is something you want to support, and again, this is how it works at Devoted. As a cause of the month, we give 1% of our revenue to our cause of the month. So for the month of January, that's what's going to happen with Traffic911, as well as for every affiliate and every preferred customer who signs up, or who is part of Devoted, we give $3.50. And that's where the giving really adds up fast. So if that's one way anyone and everyone can give, is become a preferred customer. We also, I think I can say this about the fight against trafficking more than any other cause, we have 4 brands, I believe, that give back. So Callion, we talked about, amazing candles, and a portion of their sales, a pretty large portion of their sales go toward that. We have Missio hair care products that support anti-trafficking here in the U.S. We have Elegant Tees Clothing, who works specifically with a group in Nepal who once they're rescued and gives them jobs. We have Starfish Project, which is jewelry, which does the same in Asia. And we have Fazal, who do the cutest little wool hats and mittens and socks you've ever seen, who work with people in the Himalayas. And so quite a range. So that's another way where you can let your shopping shape the world with Devoted. And then, like I said earlier, if you really feel compelled, I urge you and encourage you to go to traffic911.com. That is traffic with an ICK, right? 911, and find out how you can give directly, because that will obviously go a very, very long way for you guys. Lindsey, as we kind of close down, anything, if there's one thing you want to make sure people understand, or if there's just anything we haven't covered, the floor is yours.
I think I would say one of my favorite words lately is proximity. And I just believe as humans, we're created to live in proximity to others, and especially in proximity to those who are broken. And so I would just encourage you to examine your circle. Who can you get proximate to? Who's hurting? And maybe it's, the single mom down the street, or the foster kid at church, or, whatever that looks like. How can you get proximate to brokenness? Because I'm telling you, you get proximate to brokenness, and it starts making you just a better person in all the ways. And so, I would just encourage that.
That was awesome. Now that's a word right there. That is a word. So thank you. God bless everything you're doing and everything Traffic911 is doing. Pray that it just continues to multiply and accelerate your impact there. And thank you. We're so happy to do just our small part, and anxious to see all that happens with you guys.
Yeah, super grateful. So thank you guys for supporting us.